Hello and welcome to today's content of preparing for a Diabolos raid, because that should be starting since it has been announced in the notices. I'll be going over the resistances and recommended units just in general for ease of clearing, and this time around the raid item should be the Galmia coat, I believe. That's the translation of it anyways, and at plus 5 it can give you up to plus 30% magic stat for your the person you put it on, and since it's a cloth / armor type, it is only usable for like mostly the mages in general. And the best part is you get up to 18 spirit on it, so it's pretty nice. And keep in mind that since this raid is not a collaboration raid, that means there will be a rare raid included. Without further ado, let's begin. So let's start with the resistances for Diabolos. Diabolos' main weaknesses is going to be slash and light types of attacks. So it's going to be negative 15 for slash, negative 15 for light. That means light units in general will have an immense advantage over Diabolos. Keep in mind all the other elements are going to be at 0%, so they don't have a big handicap against it. So that means a lot of slash units in general will be very usable here. Since Diabolos starts with 0 defense and 20 spirit, and 25% magic resist, you can see here obviously that magic users in general will have a pretty much a much more harder time compared to physical light units. Also, since the defense is 0, that means defense penetration is not going to be useful here. You should use defense debuffs instead. And since Diabolos' faith is 90, not only will he also take more magic damage, he will also deal a lot more magic damage. So what does this mean and what you should bring? You should try to bring, if possible, light units that have slash damage. You can also bring Steal Time, Imperils in general, even for attack types Imperils, so you can make that negative 15% slash even like lower if you have like Kotetsu or something. You get also Esper Killer, because Diabolos is also an Esper. What you do not want to take is that you do not want to bring Agility Breaks and Spirit Debuffs, because it does not work against Diabolos, unfortunately. He is resistant to those. The damage you will take from Diabolos will also be dark magic attack types, so make sure you bring some magic resist just somewhere, just so you don't take as much damage. So before I start on what units to bring for Diabolos, I changed up the setup a little bit because now that we have EX, raids are slightly actually easier to do because of how much stronger EX units can be in general in terms of PvE. Because they not only have an increased damage cap, but they also have much higher raw stats in general in terms of damage. So with that being said, let's go. So for the units to bring for Diabolos, the recommended solo carry DPS units that you can probably just bring at will and they'll just perform just fine with very good DPS will be El Sorel and Rob. Rob being here is with his EX. Because EX is now out, most of these units that are placed here are either going to be with their EX to be viable, or they will not be in the top list in general. So Rob kind of needs his EX here because he is very squishy without his EX, but with his EX he not only hits very hard, he also gains a large amount of HP for himself. Strong units on their own is going to be Tidus, Auron, and Gilgamesh. Tidus and Auron both have they have chaining abilities, so they can actually make quick work of Diabolos because of also their raw damage. Gilgamesh also has his EX, so he hits pretty hard, and he has Kotetsu to make like insane damage values off the Kotetsu. So they are very viable units in the raid. Some good DPS units that also have magic resistance, and they'll just be usable in the raid basically. It's going to be Winter Mashari, Cecil, Ramza, and Agrias. They either have good element or chaining abilities, or they have the good attack type against the boss, so I put them there. Now we move on to the very high DPS units. They don't necessarily have the good magic resistance or the element typing against the raid boss. However, them on their own are very strong if you put them on the right team. So Stern with his EX, not only does he get Calamity Hazard, which is also basically a Kotetsu with the slash imperil, it's very strong. Raldor has his Chasm Render with his LB, which he can just lower the strike resistance against Diabolos and start smashing him with strike attacks. Technically Ziza can fit here too, but I can't fit everyone here in general because then the list gets kind of long. But yeah, you get the point. If you see at the bottom left, there's enablers and utility. Red circles will allow attack types to be more easier accessible. Dwayne is also very good here. He has good magic resist, well, not good magic resist, but he has acceptable magic resist and you could put it up easily, but he also has his own good damage. Stern, Knight of Ruin, always does high damage. He also has a defense break. It's very good. Sid as well can actually do pretty good work here if he's given the opportunity to. He can use Divine Ruination and Crush Armor, and he can start dealing a lot of damage. So in terms of equipment, usually not too much talk about equipment. Usually it's going to be the standard stuff for offensive, which is almost always going to be Zizabel's for her TMR. The Light Bracer is very effective here if you have a light unit, because you also gain a lot of dark resist off that, so you don't necessarily have to get as much magic resist. So dark resist is very nice there. For the defensive options, if you have Armor of Light, you should use that, or with the trial event that we have just finished farming, the Titus Necklace is actually very good, because not only do you get magic resistant off that, you get spirit, and you get the extra critical damage if you deal critical hits. So it's very nice to have in terms of defensive and offensive options. And let's move on to the resistances for the rare raid, which is going to be the Flan Princess. So the Flan Princess main weaknesses is going to be magic attack types and dark units. So what this means is that all other elements are going to actually have a 10% resistance to it. It's not too bad. 10% isn't like crazy high, but it still is there. There's also other resistances. It's going to be strike at 5% and pierce at 10%. None of the attack type percents are actually too high. If you do have an Imperil for the attack types, you can definitely just bring those units and make work of the boss. Since the boss also has 15 defense and 0 spirit, this means that spirit magic attacks in general will deal more damage unless you have defense breaks and such, or spirit breaks too. I mean, it depends on what you want to bring for your team. The faith is also at 70, so it will take a lot more magic damage in general, but not as high as Diabolos is, because Diabolos has 90 faith instead. So what you want to bring to like easily clear the Flan Princess, you want to bring dark attacks, dark units in general, or dark magic as well. Since the Flan Princess, you could also bring spirit and defense debuffs, and you can also bring attack imperils and aquatic killer. Do not bring water killer because it's not actually a water type, it's aquatic. There are clear differences there. It is also not an Esper, so do not bring Esper killer there. It is, however, immune to steal time and CT changes, which means such as like Titus's like delay buster or something will not. Oh no, not delay buster. Quick hit, I believe. I think it's quick hit. Yeah, his quick hit won't actually change the CT of the Flan boss. He can still get his own benefits, but he cannot change the CT on the boss. So it's better to bring basically like agility breaks or something like that. The damage and statuses you will take will be mostly light element attacks and confusion. So because there's confusion, try to bring confusion resistance in general when you're fighting this boss, so there's not as much RNG factors. So what units to bring for the rare raid? So the top units for solo carry DPS, and you can just bring them and they will perform just fine, is going to be Garvel and Ziza with her EX. Ziza with her EX is probably going to be one of the best matchups against the boss because of her debilitating fist, I believe. Sorry, I'm really bad at pronouncing things. I'm sorry. But yeah, she will definitely deal very high damage if she has her EX on her. Strong units on their own. Stern, regular Stern with his EX with Calamity Hazard is always going to be a very solid unit for raids in general. Kane with his Piercing Lance is also going to deal good damage to the boss because its low pierce resist is not negative, but it's very low enough that it can go negative after a single Piercing Lance. So he's very good there. Mediana with her EX not only can lower the spirit, but also the ice resistance to the boss. She can actually deal a lot of damage to the boss with her EX. Even without it, she can still do good damage, but with her EX, it helps her even more. So good units in general, like with their attack, like magic attack or their element, Sakura is always going to be good as well because she has her Thunder's Light, which is going to lower the lightning, and no, it should be just lightning. Yeah, light and lightning element resistance down. Or she could also use like Rebel Intention. She deals very good damage there. She also can chain off her own Eternal Pain. So if you had like a bunch of Sakuras and they all just Eternal Pain, it can still stack up the chain damage. It's pretty good. Kilfi with her Limit Break will always lower the magic attack resist, which can make it so that it's basically using a Kotetsu on Diabolos. You will deal insane damage with any magic caster at that point. I specifically put Howley here because I haven't really put him on a lot of lists, so I feel like he should be mentioned here because he has his Stellar Artist or something. So he deals very good magic damage, and with the wind resist down or wind imperil down, he can actually make use of that even more. So he could deal very high damage. So high DPS units in general, once again, we have Gilgamesh because he has his EX, as well as he has Kotetsu, so he's always going to deal damage to the boss. It'll be nice. Dwayne, Runestern, and Venera are all dark units, and they all have either defense downs or the dark element down, so they can also deal very significant damage to the boss. Keep in mind, however, for Runestern, he does have a negative confusion resistance. You might want to bring an elf cloak on him or other confusion resistant items because he has an easier chance of getting confused, unfortunately. I also put Yuna here specifically for high DPS because with her Enhanced Holy or Bursting Light or her other magic abilities, because she has EX and she has access to Bahamut, both the Vision card and the Esper, she can deal very, very high damage, and she has the damage cap above the others that are not EX, so she can deal very significant damage if she's in the right party. For equipment, because you want to just deal damage, it's always going to be Zizabel's, but I also specifically put Cecil's TMR here, his circlet, because it gives attack and magic stat up to all your teammates, and that means you just deal more damage in general. For defensive options, this gets a little bit more interesting. Thancred's TMR gives light resistance, and because the boss does light attacks, the light resistance will help actually pretty significantly. Elf's Cloak is also very important here because it has confusion resistance, so now if you combine these two items for the TMR slot and the Elf Cloak, you basically mitigate a lot of the boss's damage and the status elements. Just keep in mind, however, because it's a TMR, you have to give up Zizabel's, and maybe you don't want to give up Zizabel's, so it's up to your own digression on what you want to bring. And we arrived to the end of the video. As always, if you like my raid preparation video, please leave a like and or subscribe. And until the next video, have fun raiding, make sure you get that raid item, and peace out.